Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here.
After 1 week hiatus.
Yeah, this is our not quite weekly Q&A video. As always, we're going to start off with an update. So the online match is for Voodoo Bray Wyatt in WWE Immortals, and you get Johnny Cage.
Mortal Kombat Johnny Cage.
Mortal Kombat Johnny Cage for the character challenge.
Yeah, not the A-list one, because that's the rare drop in the special pack.
In Mortal Kombat X, the character challenge is for Unstoppable Jason Voorhees, who's a repeat. The early access pack is for Dark Lord Kotal Khan, and the multiplayer is just a regular Faction Wars season. Just a reminder, after the update, you now get Blood Rubies. So that's a new currency in the game. And in Injustice, the character challenge is for Arkham Knight Catwoman for a very short amount of time, just a day, a little bit over. The online battle rewards are for Blackest Night Doomsday, which is, again, only until tomorrow.
I think what you were getting distracted by is that the next challenge is probably going to be Earth 2 Solomon Grundy.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing else listed in the release notes as being an upcoming challenge.
Totally mix those up. And the current Survivor gear is LexCorp gear set, but until June 2nd. So, again, not for that long, and it's probably going to be replaced with the League of Assassins gear set if previous experience has been any indicator. So, now we're going to move on to answering a couple questions.
Well, I guess even before that, just in general, there have been lots of questions and worries about the upcoming Motherbox gear, draining 2 bars of power. We've responded a bunch in the comments, but others are probably interested, so we want to point out it only drains from the opponent's first position, even though it functions no matter which slot in your team that you equip it on. So you can put it on your second guy, and it'll drain the first slot out of 2 bars. So one thing to keep in mind, and it's something that we can't check until we take it into multiplayer, is there's a chance that equipping 2 or more pieces of the LexCorp gear set can act as a really good counter, because the gear set properties is that it gives power instead of being drained. So you might actually be able to generate 2 bars of power by having the LexCorp gear. So definitely Motherbox is a strategy changer, but absolutely not a game changer.
Yeah, especially if you don't have anybody who you plan on getting drained in first position.
Okay, so what's happened lately is, and we mentioned in our update video, I guess a week and a half ago, that the replay option is gone, and it seems like it appears every once in a while and then it disappears again, so it looks like we don't really have the option to do that as a background. So what we might do while we're answering some questions is grind a little bit of the challenge.
Yeah, okay, so our first question comes from Flightless Gravity, well, our first individual person asking a question, and they ask, what's your favorite Marvel and DC heroes and villains? And so personally, one of my favorite is, you guys might know from the video where we talked about what Komoda means. Miracle Man, from the Miracle Man comics done by Neil Gaiman, and then originally...
Oh, no, originally by Alan... Yeah.
Yeah, originally done by,
Alan Moore.
Alan Moore.
And Gary Leach was the artist, and he switched out to Chuck Beckham, and then to Alan Davis. So, technically that's not a Marvel character, although they reprinted it when they finally sorted out the rights. Marvel was the one that was willing to reprint the original Miracle Man series.
Yeah, so that was really good, and the reason why it wasn't associated with anyone is because it was originally not a rip-off exactly, but it was originally meant to emulate Marvel Man. It was a spin on Marvel Man.
Okay, and I think I've been pretty open, or just pretty outspoken about how my favorite character in playing is Flash. But I'm going to go with a couple people a little bit more obscure, and this is a very personal reason. When I was younger, and they had comic books at the library, and I would read whatever comic books I could get my hands on. The selection, though, left a little bit to be desired. So the main comics I could find when I was at the library, it was Amethyst and Warlord. So Warlord was the one that Mike Grell did, the guy who did Green Arrow, Longbow Hunters. He did a bunch of other stuff, but that's what I remember. So I really loved reading Warlords. And Amethyst was the princess, and she had the magical powers and stuff, right? So I read that a lot, and I actually really enjoyed it because that's what I could get. I was just desperate for any kind of comics.
So that's really obscure stuff, but that's
my favorite DC. Now Marvel is hard because I guess there's lots of different reasons why you can have a favorite, right? But I think ultimately my favorite has been. Oh, here's an interesting point. I read this. I think Mark Evanier, one of the a really important comics historian, but a writer too, said that it's funny because the heroes and the villains, the nature of comic books is that there's so many different people writing them over time. There's never, at least on the big companies, ever one creative team that stays on it forever. So one person's version of, say, Superman is different from another person's version of Superman.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say sometimes that you have one character that's always your favorite because some incarnations are better. And I think out of all the characters who I've enjoyed the most over time, sort of regardless of whoever's working on it, and it has a lot more to do with the writer than the artist, but I really like Spider-Man. So remember the Ultimate Spider-Man?
Yeah, I really enjoyed that series.
Brian Michael Bendis.
That was a good read.
And then there was that back in the day before Todd McFarlane got too full of himself, the Amazing Spider-Man starting with number 298, really good. Then J. Michael Straczynski did a whole run when they rebooted it.
Yeah.
Lots of really good stuff. So lots of really good creative teams that have worked on it.
Really interesting, just kind of tangentially related to the different authors, writers, right?
Mm-hmm.
The new Marvel comic universe reboot happened.
Oh, yeah.
And so apparently in the new series, Captain America may or may not be Hydra now.
Oh, I heard that.
Yeah, with the whole, he betrays somebody and then says Hail Hydra, and it's a stepping point for something. He's either Hydra, or, like, retconned.
Maybe he's a double, like a triple agent, you know? Like he's pretending to be Hydra, faking to be, and then it's good.
There's something there either way.
Okay, because this is the issue too, right? A lot of the times when you have those kind of big events to try to drive readers, a lot of times they end up writing themselves into dead ends, and they have to retcon it back and say, oh, it never happened, or like Spider-Man and Mary Jane. There's a whole storyline. I think it was it one last day, one more day, where they got Morpheus to come in and make it like Peter Parker and Mary Jane had never married. Which was so, I mean, it was a good story, very disappointing that they took so many years of continuity and just sort of threw it out the window.
Yeah, so anyways, that's a really long answer to that question. Our next question comes from CartmanMC, and they say, are you guys trying to find another promotion glitch? And so the short answer is no. We're not going to try to find another promotion glitch.
But that's not really
but
what he's asking.
The reason we're not gonna, we can't make one, we can't really choose when we find one, because most of the time it's not us who finds it. There's a whole lot more hours of play going into it than just what we're putting into it, right? The entire fan base as a whole. And so most promotion glitches are found by someone who's not us, and then if we're lucky enough, they tell us first sometimes. That's been really great when somebody already watches us and they're the first person to find it and they tell us about it.
We've only made one, I think. I think we've done one where we came up with the idea and the execution.
And then there's also times where we'll just see it around, and when we feel like we can test it, we know the risks, and we also feel like we have something useful to add. Maybe that is just all the risks as a kind of asterisk on the glitch.
So we're finding, it's like we're in the electronics world, we would be Sony. So we don't always come up with the technology, but we refine. Well, actually, this is more like Sony in the 80s and 90s, not Sony now. But that there'd be this technology there, but then we would try to do a really good job with it and come up with something a little special.
Yeah, so it's very hard to actually discover a glitch by yourself. I think the only way that you could set about doing it, other than just with random luck, would be to figure out things that make the game do things which it's not meant to do. Like, the overselling glitch in its various forms, right, has come up a couple times. And messing around with stuff like that to see how many different ways you can use that and how many different effects you can create with it. So the next question comes from Anthony Truong.
Oh, actually, so I should say though, I mean, if we find one, if we become aware one, we're going to test it and we're going to post it.
Yeah.
So the best way, I mean, we've said this a bunch of times, but it probably bears repeating because of the nature of how YouTube works. There's probably a lot of people who haven't seen those videos where we talk about it. We will, as soon as we find one, we will test it, and once we've tested it so we understand how it works, then we're going to post it. So just subscribe, or just pay attention to what we're putting out.
Yeah. Also, I think it works better if you like all of our videos and comment on all of them. Something like that. I mean,
and watch them through the whole time.
Well, I think you actually do. There is some issues with subscription boxes and stuff. I severely doubt that it's anything except an accident, but it might have something to do with your engagement. In which case, liking it might actually be useful. But anyways, question, Anthony Truong, and this is a bunch of comments aggregated. Do you have a strategy to beat Killer Frost and Blackest Night Martian Manhunter? I'm putting together teams that sound good on paper, but it's really hard to put together what works for me. I get the concept of a special, physical, and tanker, but it's honestly really hard to apply. And then the next question is, I thought combining Arkham Knight Catwoman, Arkham Knight Bats, and Arkham Knight would be a good idea, but all have been quick to be KO'd. My more successful teams have been Arkham Origins Deathstroke, Red Sun Superman, and Wonder Woman. In Raven, Arkham Knight Harley, and Wonder Woman 600. And I'm assuming that's a Wonder Woman, Red Sun Wonder Woman, just...
Right.
Especially that all-female team, since Harley provides healing support while being able to juggle. I've been following your format of a special attacker, a regular attacker, and a tank. I still think it's hard to apply. Which ones have crit damage and crit chance augmented? None, because I don't know who need it most. So that's, we asked him which ones have crit damage, and then he said, I don't know, no one.
Alright, so this is, I guess, we talked about it before, and it probably is interesting to sort of put some of it together. What you really, basic concepts, because it's hard to say, because there's always going to be somebody asking, well, you know, how do I use these guys, how do I put them together, whatever, and there's always nuances and different things that you can do, but as long as you follow general principles, there's lots of different ways. It's the way they say there's lots of ways to skin the cat, right? So you don't always have to do it exactly the same way, but you can be pretty successful. So there's always a strategy, and we're going to maybe mix up a bit of what we already responded to them and talk about sort of a bit more broadly certain other things. So when you build a team, you want to make sure you don't have a particular exploitable weakness. So you know that when you've played a bit that there's certain characters that are going to be tough on you or that are going to give you trouble if you have a specific strategy. So if you've got a lot of specialists on your team, special specialists, then Power Drainer is going to be a problem. Or somebody who negates some of the power gaining like Killer Frost. And the other part then is in choosing which characters should be in the fight at any given time, because you can have a great team. If they're in at the wrong time, then you're kind of screwed. And that actually brings up another point, because out of all the gears that have really changed things, I think League of Assassins, the gear set properties, have changed it a lot because you can't switch in and out. I mean, it's really ruined Hawkgirl, right?
Yeah, considering she wasn't that good in the first place, it's kind of sad that
her passive that allows you to check in and out, tag in and out faster.
Yeah,
is kind of
because that was really interesting and not very good. So now it's kind of interesting and definitely not at all good.
Yeah. So what you mentioned too. Here's the thing: as the game evolves, one of the problems is that when you haven't augmented anyone, it makes it even harder to be successful, because in a lot of ways, augmentations now are like gear were when gear first came out. If you go in completely gearless, you're working at a huge disadvantage, and you're going to have trouble generating enough damage so that, whatever mistakes you make, it's hard to win completely without losing any health. And what's going to happen is, if you don't do enough damage, it's going to take you longer to finish the fight, and you're going to have a bigger chance of losing.
I think the way that they handled gear, where they just ignored it in online matchmaking, and they just assumed that the higher level guys would have better gear and that would be the same for everyone, doesn't work the same way with augments, because if you're only upping your crit damage and crit chance, that's a huge advantage, and it looks like it's completely invisible on matchmaking right now.
Right, so that's part of the problem. One is that, alright, so if you're watching our videos, when you think about the number of opposition teams that you're going to face with augmentation, so even though there's display errors will show them looking like they don't have augmentations, they do. Even with the right strategy, you really have to have at least one card on your team with crit chance and damage augmented. And especially on damage over time specialists, like Arcanite Catwoman, you're missing out on a huge part of her strength by not having crit on her damage over time. It can be huge, and it can counter guys who normally are crit immune, like a Red Sun Green Lantern.
I really hope in the next update that they do something about like figuring out how to factor in crit though, because if you have a maximum crit augment, it's actually 175% damage on all of your attacks on average, right? A 50% chance on all damage at 250%.
Right, so 75% boost. Right,
yeah. So without anything else, you're actually dealing 75% more damage on average, which is insane. That's almost twice as much damage for the character, which needs to be factored.
Which is why we've always said those are the two most important augmentations. They will not put you into a higher bracket, and they're the easiest to max out. They take the fewest number of augmentations. So let's say they're relatively balanced in terms of which ones you get. It takes the fewest augmentations to max out your crit chance and crit damage boost.
Yeah.
And can't say it enough, with not having crit augmentations now is the same as in the old days going in without any gears. So imagine going in without gears now, how much of a handicap that is. Same thing. Really, and that's part of the reason why we've taken so long in between changing up our teams, because even using all the glitches and playing Survivor as much as we've got time for, it takes a long time to augment somebody well enough so that they're effective in multiplayer online play.
Yeah, because the only Survivor glitch that you can make use of is the one for extra last laugh tickets. And the real kicker with last laugh tickets is, like, a last laugh ticket isn't actually even a certain percentage of any given thing you want. It's not like any of the other currencies.
Right.
So you have to play a certain amount to get them. You get them kind of at random intervals with a certain small amount guaranteed.
Yeah.
You can use that glitch, but it doesn't give you that many, and a small percentage of those even are the ones that you actually want. So it's actually a huge amount of playing to be able to get a bunch of maxed out golds who are really supposed to be like top tier characters, right?
Yeah.
Augmented enough that you can actually also play with them pretty comfortably.
Right. All right.
So that's all.
Oh, and I guess just as a teaser, we've got one more guy who's max augmented for crit chance and stuff, which is Reverse Flash, so we're going to be coming up with something soon to demonstrate just how fun he is to play.
Oh, yeah, the Flash is a lot of fun. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, I guess. But only if you want to see glitch videos. If you don't want to see those, you can do pretty much whatever you want. So yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Komoda.